So before I begin my presentation, I actually want to start with a moment of gratitude. First, I want to thank all of you for showing up today. I know I have some family members, friends, colleagues, some past students joining today, and also some new people that I haven't met yet. So thank you all so much for showing up to spend the next about 30 minutes plus here tonight. And I also want to take a moment to thank the Alumni Association at the MAPP program at UPenn for creating this space for us to connect and share ideas and learn from each other. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to my friend Amy O'Sullivan, my friend from MAPP, who will be managing the chat box. So Amy, do you want to take a moment to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone. For some reason, my video is not letting me tune in, but you are in great hands and you're in for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for being here. So throughout this session, Amy will keep an eye out for the chat box as I go through this presentation. So today I will give you an introduction to the field of positive psychology, specifically focusing on using well-being strategies to build resilience during this time of COVID-19. This time we're in, this global pandemic that is affecting essentially all of us. So as I go through this presentation, I invite you all to pay close attention to what resonates for you and what makes sense in your specific life and your specific situation, to keep that in mind. So first, what are we in for today? So first, I will give you a brief introduction to the field of positive psychology, its history, and defining the field, what it is. Then we will talk about well-being and resilience theory. We will talk about a well-being theory called PERMA-V. We'll talk about each of these elements and how what those elements might look like in the time of COVID-19. And then at the end, we will discuss how you can increase your well-being and resilience during this time. And then we'll have time for questions and the discussion of key takeaways at the end. So if you have any questions, I welcome all questions. You can put it in the chat box, and then I will address your questions at the end of the presentation. So first, what is positive psychology? So to give you a brief history of psychology, of the field of positive psychology, initially, the field of psychology had three main pillars, three main missions. Namely, before 1940s, those missions were to cure mental illness, to explore how to foster more fulfilling and productive lives, and to understand and developing high potential. Then came the Second World War, and after the Second World War, the field at large started to focus primarily on the one pillar, curing mental illness, and the two other pillars weren't really prioritized. So while we had amazing groundbreaking research in terms of curing mental illness and developing strategies to address these challenges, the other two pillars were not prioritized in the field. Until about 20 years ago, Marty Seligman, or Marty, as we like to call him within the field of positive psychology, called out a need in the field of psychology to focus on the whole spectrum of human emotions, of the human experience, from struggling and mental illness to the other side, the positive side of the human experience. And I will read this quote for you. Martin Seligman said that psychology is half-baked, literally half-baked. We have baked the part about mental illness. We have baked the part about repair and damage. But the other side is unbaked, the side of strengths, the side of what we are good at, the side of what makes life worth living. So together with his colleagues, Marty called out the need in the field to focus on this other side of the human experience and founded the field of positive psychology when he was president of the American Psychological Association. So essentially, positive psychology is the science of what makes life worth living, the psychology of human flourishing. So while traditional psychology had focused on repair, healing, addressing weaknesses, and treating mental illness, the field of positive psychology is intended as a complement to traditional psychology. And the main principle is that in addition to looking at this side of repairing mental illnesses and so on, we should also look at the other side of thriving, flourishing, resilience, and strengths and well-being. So positive psychology call out a need in the field to a reorientation towards the positive side. And positive psychology has been applied in a variety of settings, including the US military, schools, education, and childcare in general, and psychotherapy. So actually been applied to also treating mental illness from a strength-based approach. And it has been applied to business, executive coaching, and consulting, to name a few applications. Positive psychology are also classes in positive psychology has become very popular elective classes at top universities, including Harvard, Yale, and Penn. Also NYU, where I was actually lucky enough that is where I was first introduced to the field of positive psychology when I was an undergraduate student at NYU studying applied psychology at NYU. I had the pleasure of taking the class, The Science of Happiness, with Dan Lerner and Alan Schlechter. And I'm currently, after taking this class, I had the pleasure of becoming a teacher assistant for this course, which I still am. And I know I actually have some past students on the webinar today, so shout out to you. So in the field of positive psychology, we talk about well-being. And well-being, when we talk about well-being, that is not just about feeling happy and happiness. It's more holistic than that. It has several elements. We also talk about meaning and relationships and having a sense of feeling good, but also feeling like you're doing good and having a sense of being part of something larger than yourself. And I want to take a moment to talk about how we can talk about well-being when facing challenges, when facing struggles. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that right now, this pandemic is a very challenging time for most of us. Many people are feeling worried for their own health and for the health of loved ones. Many people have lost income, and just the general dealing with the uncertainty of the current situation can be really challenging. And that's why I really like this model you can see on the screen right now, showing well-being along two dimensions. One dimension being struggle and one dimension being thriving. So if you look at this model, of course, this is a simplification, but in the lower right corner, you see high struggle and low thriving. Those are the people who are really struggling. And then you see the lower right corner, low struggle, low thriving, not feeling bad, but just getting by. Upper right corner, high thriving, low struggle. Those are the people who are consistently thriving. And then you see high struggle and high thriving, people who are living well despite struggle. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that even when we have high struggle, when we are facing challenges, we can still find well-being. We can still do intentional activity to take care of our own well-being, to live well despite the challenges we are facing. And that's where we find resilient people, people who are able to navigate challenging situations. And resilience it's not fixed, it is changeable, and we can do intentional activity to boost our resilience and boost our well-being. And that's what we will focus on for the rest of the presentation, what we can control and how we can attend to those factors. So I want to introduce you to this well-being model, PERMA-V, which is one well-being model developed by Martin Seligman and colleagues, consisting of 6 different elements. The first one is positive emotion. The second one, engagement. The R stands for relationships. The M is for meaning. A for accomplishments. And finally, V for vitality, or physical well-being. So next, I'm going to briefly talk about each of these elements and then discuss some ways we can attend to these elements during this time we're in. First one is positive emotions. So when we talk about positive emotions, we talk about pleasant emotions such as joy, love, gratitude, inspiration, amusement, emotions that makes us feel happy, quote unquote. And I want to make one important point to make is that having positive emotions does not mean the absence of negative emotions. There's actually a high correlation between positive emotions and negative emotions, which means essentially that you can be happy and sad at the same time. You can find joy and yet have worries. And on a call a few weeks ago, Martin Seligman was talking about ways to navigate COVID-19. He said that his number one advice for people was to maximize joys. So really allowing yourself to find joy during this time. And I also want to give you this brief resource, cultivating a gratitude practice. So gratitude is a really powerful positive emotions that we can intentionally cultivate. And one simple way to do so is the 3 good things exercise, which you may or may not have heard about before. What you do is that every day you think about 3 things you are grateful for today and why you are grateful for them. And then you can, and if that doesn't really resonate with you, you can also just think about what are 3 things that went well today. And you can journal about this, you can tell someone, you can text someone, or you can just imagine it for yourself. And things to be grateful for during this time can be really small things, such as I am grateful for having enough toilet paper in my house, or larger things, such as I'm really grateful for all the essential workers keeping me safe during this time. And I wanted to share this story with you. I find that this is a really beautiful expression of gratitude we see during this time, people clapping for essential workers every day. The upper left corner is from Oslo, Norway, where I'm originally from. Then there's a picture from India, there's a picture from Italy, and then the lower right corner is from New York City, where I usually live. Second element is engagement. And engagement is about being really immersed in the activities you're doing, being in the zone, and finding activities that really makes you feel really in the zone and really energizing, really energized after feeling that sense of engagement. So during this time, many of us might have some extra time on their hands. So I invite you just to think about what are some activities that make you really feel in the moment and really engaged. And then giving yourself permission to maybe spend some time doing those activities during this time. Third element is relationships. And relationships is essential for well-being, and we also know that having connection to other people is a protective factor for our resilience. So this is very important. We know that having healthy relationships is the #1 predictor for our well-being. humans are hypersocial animals. We are hardwired for connection, so we really need this. When Chris Peterson, one of the founders of positive psychology, was asked to summarize the field of positive psychology in 3 words, he famously said, "Other people matter." We also know that relationships may look different during this time we're in. When we are maybe staying at home, we're practicing social distancing. We are staying physically apart from other people. So during this time, relationships may look more like this, right? Having virtual connections. And I don't think having virtual connections with people will ever be as good as connecting with people in person. As an extrovert, I really think connecting with people in person is the best way, but during this time, I also find that this is a silver lining, that we have these tools to connect, that right now we are connecting across cities and states and continents, and we are able to exchange knowledge and share ideas. That is amazing to me. So that has been a silver lining, and really giving yourself permission to spend time connecting with other people and being creative, whether that is having like a virtual happy hour or a game night or just giving a phone call to someone. Fourth element is meaning. And meaning is about being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, having a sense of purpose, having a sense of belonging. And people find meaning in a variety of ways. I think my number one suggestion of a way to find meaning during this time is to think about how can you be of service to other people? How can you be of service to find a sense of purpose through helping others? Whether that is using your strengths, maybe sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, or even just offering to go to the grocery store for someone who might want support with that, or even just connecting with a friend, checking in on someone who might be grateful for that extra support during this time. I also think finding meaning during this time can be challenging if we're maybe sheltering in place, staying at home a lot, and that can find meaningless. If that's the case, I invite you to bring to mind the main reason you are staying at home is to keep other people safe. And that is, that's our duty during this time. Although Corona as a whole can feel meaningless, doing your part to keeping other people safe, I think there's meaning in that. Fourth element is accomplishments. And accomplishment is about having a sense of mastery and control in your life, having a sense of reaching your goals, and feeling a sense of achievement. And we also know that having that self-efficacy, having that mastery is a protective factor for our resilience. And we also know that during this time, our achievements, our goals, our priorities may have to shift. Productivity may look very different during this time than before the pandemic, and that's okay. So I really encourage you to celebrate small achievements in your everyday life, whether that is figuring out how to work from home, maybe even just making a schedule for yourself and having small goals to complete every day. And also just making your well-being a priority, I think, is an achievement in itself. Final element is vitality. And vitality is about our physical well-being, so taking care of your body, mind. And we know that the body and the mind are so intimately connected that it doesn't actually really make sense to talk about the mind-body connection, because you can't really separate the two. And we know that taking care of our physical well-being is always important, but I would say especially important during this time. So first suggestion, dimension of physical well-being is to sleep and rest, taking breaks and allowing your body the rest it needs to be at its best. Movement and physical activity, whether that is taking an online yoga class or taking a fitness class, or maybe just going for a run or walking outside, whatever movement and physical activity looks like to you, giving yourself permission to spend that time and to move our bodies. And I really encourage you to find movements and physical activity exercises that feel fulfilling and joyful to you. Do what makes you feel good and feels enjoyable. And movement actually, and physical activity actually has the potential to hit every other element in this model. You can find a sense of relationships, working up for other people, sense of achievement, trying new things, and engagement and positive emotions from moving our bodies. Nature and spending time outside, if that is available to you. I know it's not available for everyone, but if that is something that is available to you, giving yourself permission to spending time outside and spending time in nature, we know is very beneficial for our health and well-being. And then balanced nutrition and hydration, we know, is always important. And I also just want to say, allowing yourself to enjoy good foods during this time. That was another one of Martin Seligman's main suggestions for this time, to just enjoy good food. And yeah. And then finally, mindfulness and meditation, we know, is also very important for our well-being. Rather, it can be really supportive for our well-being to practice mindfulness practices, which can look very different from people to people. And practicing mindfulness can also enhance our self-awareness, which is also another protective factor for our resilience. So that was a very brief introduction, overview of vitality and physical well-being. Honestly, each one of these 5 bullet points could be like separate webinars. So that was a very brief overview, and probably this isn't new to you. You probably already know that these dimensions are important for our well-being, and it's probably especially important during this time. So, to tie it all together, you all have a unique well-being recipe, a personal perma-V. So what will give you a sense of positive emotions, engagement, relationship, and meaning? That will probably look very different from person to person. So the key then is to know yourself and exploring what fills each of the elements for you during this time. And then to give yourself permission to continually practice intentional activity that attends to your perma-V. So giving yourself permission to continue to attend to each of these different elements and continue to building that self-awareness of what fills them for you. And then finally, knowing that promoting well-being supports your resilience. So by promoting your well-being, by taking really good care of yourself and allowing yourself to be well, that will support your resilience, that will help you navigate this challenging situation that we are all in today. So that completes my presentation. Before we move on to questions, I wanted to thank you all for showing up again and for your time and your attention. I wanted to share my contact information in case you want to connect in the future. You have my email, my website, and my Instagram that you can follow to stay updated on events and other resources and offerings. So let's move on to questions. So I would love to hear if anyone has any questions that you would like me to talk about, and I would also love to hear any key takeaways from this session. If anything I talked about today really resonated with you, anything stood out to you, any changes you will do in the future based on this presentation, I would love to hear about it. If you would like to share anything, please feel free to put it in the chat box. And I will circle back to Amy.
Yes, you're receiving a lot of excitement for being here, and then people thanking you for the overview and the concise and well-presented visuals. One question is it possible to get these slides? Would you be willing to share them if someone were to reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. I would be happy to share these slides. So if you would like these slides, feel free to shoot me an email. See my email right here, cecilieløvestam@gmail.com, and I would be more than happy to share my slides. Any other questions or key takeaways from people?
Owen asked, can you talk more about giving yourself permission?
Yes, thank you for the question, Owen. So yeah, so that is something that I tend to talk quite a bit about when I talk about well-being. As a student in the MAPP program, I actually wrote my capstone on the topic of self-permission, and my hypothesis is that for some people, not giving yourself permission to attend to your well-being might be a barrier to attend to our well-being. And my hypothesis is that some people might feel guilty for practicing self-care, for taking time for themselves to take care of their well-being, and therefore it might be important to really allow yourself that time, and understanding that that is something you deserve as a human being. I so deeply believe that all humans deserve to be well, and you know, if you would give that to someone else, can you also give that to yourself? Give yourself that permission to practice those activities and that intentional activity that will make you that will boost those different well-being elements for you.
So Shannon just wanted to shout out that the way that you said prioritizing our well-being is an accomplishment in itself. She loved that. If you could go back to the slide before, Linda's asking to repeat your email address. So if you can just pull up your last slide, absolutely. And then you're being asked, what do you personally do to attend to your well-being?
Great, thank you. And Shannon, thank you for saying that and for that question. I mean, during this time I'm in, for me, it's been essential to, I think my two main strategies that I've been using every single day to attend to my personal well-being while quarantining, while staying at home. The first one is to move my body, to get physical activity every single day, whether that is taking my dog for a walk or taking an online yoga class or actually going cross-country skiing. I'm currently in Norway, and I'm lucky to have access to nature, so just going cross-country skiing has been so wonderful. So first thing, physical activity really benefits my own well-being. Secondly, connection. So as I mentioned, our relationships is probably the #1 predictor of our well-being. our well-being, our sense of well-being is directly tied to the quality of our relationships. So just making sure that every single day I connect with other people, whether that is virtually or in person, mostly virtually, and that could be having a phone call or having like a Zoom game night I've been having recently. So that has been really helpful for me. So I would say those have been the two most helpful well-being strategies during this time.
Great. Well, Bella asked, how have you found meaning in a time where the world feels very paused?
Great question. That took me a while to find meaning. And by the way, I just want to make a point that when I say find meaning, I don't mean it in the sense that, you know, finding that this happened for a reason. That is not what I'm saying. I don't think that is a helpful perspective to have. For me, I have found meaning in small things, such as you know, like really finding that sense of belonging through my communities, having, as I mentioned, having those check-ins with my friends and my colleagues and other communities, such as the MAPP alumni community has been, that belonging has given me a great sense of meaning. And also just trying to be of service as much as I can, to help out, to be supportive to my friends and family during this time has given me a sense of meaning. And also just like tonight, giving this presentation gives me a big sense of meaning, because I get to connect, I get to share about my passion. And I really hope what I presented today was helpful and was helpful. So hopefully, so at least that gives me a big sense of meaning. Are there any other questions or main takeaways during this time from this presentation?
You have many people saying it was very helpful, they loved it, thank you, great work, and that they agree about tending to well-being in an accomplishment in itself. That really resonated with a lot of people, and adding the vitality is a lovely component to PERMA.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I should say about the vitality, you know, the vitality element, there are some different perspectives whether vitality should be part of the well-being model or not. Martin Seligman used to think it shouldn't be a separate element. But he seemed to be changing his mind lately. I have a sense that he is now acknowledging that aspect more than he used to. So I'm excited to see how that will shift in the field. Personally, I think it's very useful to include vitality as a separate element. And I really liked the PERMA-V model just because it makes, for me, I find that it makes well-being more accessible, because it breaks it into those elements, and then it makes it more accessible, kind of breaking it down into elements that you can actually attend to.
Shannon's asking, what did he change his mind about? What did Marty Seligman change? She missed that point.
Oh, yes, thanks for asking. So, so Marty Seligman, he, when we were in MAPP, when Amy and I and some other classmates who are on this call were enrolled in the MAPP program, Marty said that he does not believe that vitality, physical well-being, should be a separate element, because that it belongs to the other elements, that people don't pursue vitality for vitality's sake. They maybe pursue physical well-being to get positive emotions, to get engagement, to get achievement, and so on. Maybe I should be, to clarify, I probably shouldn't have said he changed his mind about it being a separate element. I'm actually not sure about that. We'll see. But at a webinar we were at with Marty a few weeks ago, he was really acknowledging the importance of having physical well-being during this time, talking about neck down joy, and really calling out a need and really encouraging us positive psychology practitioners to address this need in the field. So I'm excited to see what will happen there.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you've noticed that people put their engagement or the participation in certain components more than others, and how to find balance so that you're engaging in all of those factors of well-being. So a lot of us can be very accomplishment focused, and others of us really saturate in relationships. And how do you create awareness in knowing that you're getting kind of your doses of everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was a big realization for me when I first learned about this model when I was, as I mentioned, a senior at NYU. So I used to have a very unbalanced approach to these different elements. I used to be, as you mentioned, very focused on the achievement, very focused on getting those good grades and achieving and reaching my goals. And that came at the cost of those other elements. So I wouldn't prioritize them as much. I'm not sure about, I think it varies from person to person what that balance might look like. And I also want to say that it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be completely equal. Just to go back to the slide, it doesn't have to be a completely equal amount of time attended to each of these elements. Like what it will take to fill each of these elements will likely vary from person to person. I think just having the awareness of this model is helpful, and then thinking about what will filling these elements for me look like, and especially what will it look like during this time, can be helpful to get a more balanced approach. Amy, what do you think? Would you like to add anything?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. And you're getting many thank yous and beautiful content and delivery. People love the neck down joy. So lots of applause.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone so much for showing up. And thank you, Amy, for providing me with support. I'm really grateful. And yeah, feel free to reach out if anything comes up. I would love to stay connected. And by the way, this webinar is being recorded, so you will also be able to see it later. If there's anything you would like to review again, you will have the opportunity to do that. I'll make sure to get that sent out. And yeah, thank you all so much for showing up. I hope this was helpful. Stay safe, everyone, and take good care of yourself and take good care of each other during this time.